Okay, so welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I am going to be reviewing or just doing recaps on Ratched, the new Netflix series, which I did a quick Google search. They're saying the character is based on the character from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and that character in the movie was played by Louise Fletcher, as you can see here on the screen. Who also played, and if she looks familiar, then she should, because she also played the crazy mama slash grandmama in Flowers in the Attic, where she poisoned them children's to hide little dirty family secrets. Okay, so in the Netflix series, the lead character, Nurse Ratched, is played by Sara Paulson from American Horror Story. You also have Sharon Stone, Cynthia Nixon, Judy Davis, Rosanna Arquette, Sophie Canito. I am so sorry, honey, if I've mispronounced your name. I'm terrible with names. You have quite a few people in this show. So unfortunately, I will not be able to do any comparisons between the show and the movie, because the movie came out before my time, and it's like one of those movies where I can't remember if I saw it or not. I mean, from all intents and purposes, everybody said it was a great movie. So I would like to believe that if I had seen it, that I would remember it, or at least remember something about it, but I don't. But if you want to do that, feel free to do that in the comment section. So I am about to get into this first episode, and of course I will come back with my with a recap and of course my opinion. So stay tuned. Okay, so episode 1 opens with Father Dennis. I don't remember his last name, but he's giving a good word to his congregation. Everybody seems to be in good spirits. And so it's time to close up for the night, and so he is headed home. He says his goodbyes, and he's on his way. And then they flash to a young man in the shadows watching him. And of course you're like, okay, well, what is that all about? So he makes it home, and the other priests have already sat down for dinner. And he is introduced to a visiting preacher, Father Odemi. I believe that's how it was pronounced. And so they're sitting around talking, and they're talking about going to the movies to see A Miracle on 34th Street. And so Father Dennis is like, well, no. He starts coughing, like, no, I got that COVID. I just feel like I'm coming down with something, and so I'm not going to be able to make it, but y'all going, and you guys are going to have a good time. And so what you find out is that Father Dennis is not really sick. He just trying to get back to his dirty magazine and his jar of Vaseline, okay? So he is in there, he's in his room putting in work, and lets you know there's a knock at the door. Okay, so he goes to the door to find out who it is. It's this young guy. You cannot see this person at this point, saying that, oh my goodness, you know, I'm having car trouble. It broke down. Do you mind if I use your phone? And you can kind of see Father Dennis' face looking like he, you know, but you know, it's all about, you know, goodwill and helping the folks. So he let this strange young man into their home so that he could use the phone to call for a tow truck. And so he's leading him into the room to where the phone is, and this through the dining room, and the young man sees some food, a plate of food on the table. And so Father Dennis is like, well, you know, if you're hungry, you can have that. You know, he's just doing what he's supposed to be doing, being not generous to strangers, you know, helping out, helping people in need, right? And so the guy's like, oh no, I'll eat that later. Okay, so around this time, the movie lets out, and the fathers are on their way back to the house. And they make it home, and they're talking about how great a time they had, and how wonderful the movie was, and they're saying their good nights. And so they're now each in their own rooms, getting ready for bed. And for some odd reason, the house is quiet. One of the priests go into the dining room. He sees the plate of food still left on the table, so he's like, oh, I guess Father Dennis didn't finish his food. So he cleaned that up before going upstairs to get ready for bed. And so the visiting priest, Father Odemi, he's now in his bathroom. He's about to brush his teeth and wash his face and do his, say his prayers so he can get ready for bed. But as he's standing at the sink, he's all of a sudden starts hearing this drip, drip, drip in the shower. And so he's like, okay, why is there water running all of a sudden? So of course he goes to pull back the curtain, and as he pulls back the curtain, You see the young man come from behind the door. Of course, Father Odemi is distracted because Father Dennis is all cut up and dead in his bathroom. It's like it's 1941. Why'd you have to put the dead white man in the black man's shower? Okay, whatever. But Odemi, he really didn't have a chance. The man came up from behind him. And yeah, so while Father Odemi is being attacked, the two fathers who share a room, they hear noise. And so they're like, okay, what in the world? What is that? And so they go to investigate, and then they push open the door, the bathroom door, and they see Father Odemi on the dead on the floor. They see Father Dennis dead in the tub. And one of the priests was like, Lord, Father God, save me. And he dipped out. And the other guy, you know, unfortunately was attacked. He didn't stand a chance. And so it's all this mayhem and blood shit in this house. And so you finally realize what's happening. Like, who is this young man? Why is he doing this? And so you find out that Monsignor, is that his name? That's not what they referred to him, was the target the whole time. And so the guy starts going on about, do you remember Sister McGuire? And, you know, he's going into what happened to her. And he reveals that I'm your son. And basically, you ruined my mother's life, which in turn ruined my life. And so now I'm about to take your life.
One of them shot her up with morphine and killed her. Please, please forgive me. Then I got sent to an orphanage.
And it was a whole thing. So it's like, okay, you finally get into, okay, who is this young man? And like, who raised him? Like, why is he like this? And then you see he goes into this whole, well, not a whole speech, but he did go into his whole a little conversation with Father Dennis, obviously before he went on and killed him up. And so while he's killing Father Dennis, the priest that was like, Lord, Father God, save me, he's actually under the bed, and he's watching this whole thing, this man, you know, stabbing Monsignor to death. And so that's how the show pretty much opens. It already came out of the gate swinging. That was a lot that happened, and I don't know how far we're into the show, but that was a lot. In the next scene, we get to see Nurse Ratched. She's sitting outside of a gas station waiting for the attendant to bring the item she requested, i.e. a map and a copy of that day's paper. And of course, the murders were on the front page. And so they were talking, and I think she told him that she was on her way to Lucia, and she was like, yeah, you know, that he was looking at the cover of the newspaper. And he was like, yeah, that, you know, that lunatic, they have him up in Lucia. Oh, and is that why you're there? Or why are you there? He starts like getting all in her business. She's like, you know what? How about you mind your business and go wash your dirty ass hands, because you got dirt all up under your nails. She didn't say it like that, but she basically did tell him he needed to go wash his hands and that his hands were filthy. So she go on about her business. And she arrives at her hotel. She checks in. The lady at the front desk is telling her, you know, about it's swimming with reporters, of course. A murder like that makes front page news. Everybody wants to get the scoop. Even by today's standard, in 2020, that would still be considered a big story, obviously. And so the lady's going, you know, tell her about the reporters being there and the ice machine, and not to abuse the ice machine, whatever that means. And while she's trying to get her, you know, open the door, there's this guy that catches Nurse Ratched's eye. They don't speak, but they kind of make eye contact. And so she finally gets the door open. She goes in, and then she goes into unpacking her case. And so they made it a point to focus in on this yellow suit that was at the top of her clothes in her suitcase. And so she goes to get that on the hanger right quick, and then you see a flash of her standing in you see a flash of a department store with this suit on this mannequin, and then you see her looking at this suit like admiring this suit. And then the next thing you see is her stuffing this damn suit in her bag, and she's making her way on out the store. Okay, so that's how she got her little suit with the little hat. And there's like this voiceover of her like rehearsing how she's going to greet the doctor, and, you know, hi, I'm here to see Dr. Hanover. I have an appointment. Da, 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 da. You can see her kind of prepping for this meeting, right? And so she arrives at the hospital, and of course, outside you have the people standing around with the little sign saying he's a murderer, he needs to be killed, da 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 da. She goes through the gate. So she gets there and goes up to the front desk and talks to the young lady who's a nurse trainee, and saying, oh, well, I'm gonna have to go and get a real nurse. And she was like, oh, you're not a nurse? She's like, no, I'm just a trainee. I just admire nurse. They're just the, the angels of the world, da da da. And so of course Nurse Ratched is like, yes, we are. And so the lady goes to get Nurse Betsy, played by Judy Davis. And next thing you know, we see Nurse Betsy comes out, and she's like giving her the once over, like, girl, who are you? Dr. Hanover, nor I, don't know you. Who are you? Why are you here? Where did you come from?
Where did you get this? You must be the head nurse. Mildred Ratched. I didn't ask what your name was. Where did you get the letter?
Why, it was sent to me.
That's where I'm confused. Because there is no one in his office except for Dr. Hanover and myself. I didn't send that, and I can assure you that isn't Dr. Hanover's signature.
Okay. So they go back and forth, and eventually Nurse Betsy was like, well, Dr. Hanover is out, and I don't know when he's going to be back. And Nurse Ratched was like, you know what? I'll wait. Like, he's going to have to come back at some point, so I'm just going to go on and wait for him. Okay, do you mind? No, I didn't think you would. So I'm just going to go ahead and have a seat, perched up in my little suit, my new suit that I stole. And we're going to wait for Dr. Hanover. And then I can just talk to him. Okay, you go. So you can go on about your day, go on and make your rounds and do whatever it is you got to do. And I'm just going to be here. Okay? So that was kind of fun. That was an interesting scene. But Nurse Betsy's like, girl, we don't know you. No. Okay, so we finally see Dr. Hanover, and he is sitting outside an office waiting for an appointment with a meeting with the governor. But the governor's receptionist comes out, and she's like, oh, well, he's not available. He's going to have to reschedule, da 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 da. And she basically goes back to the office and closes the door, right? So he's sitting there. You can see the frustration, on his face. And so I guess he goes to the nearest bar. He's having a drink. And who walks in? The governor and his wife. And of course the governor is like, we'll have our usual table, da 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 da. So now he takes it, he takes the opportunity to talk to him about what, his plans for the hospital. But of course the governor's like, well, as you can see, we're having a meeting. We're having lunch. I'm having lunch with my wife. Like, this is not the time or the place. And he's basically like, you've been putting me off for, like, I don't know, a couple of weeks, couple of months. I don't know. And so the governor finally says, you know what, you have until they bring out drinks. Da da da. He wasn't able to get much out before they came with the drinks. And he's like, oh, well, time's up. So we'll have to, I'll, call and we'll schedule an appointment, which of course he knew was BS. But as he was leaving, you could see that the governor's wife, played by Cynthia Nixon, was interested. She was interested, but of course she wasn't going to say anything right then and there. So Nurse Ratched, she's still there. She's waiting for the doctor to return. And while she's waiting, she decides to go into the restroom to kind of, freshen up her makeup. And while she's there, she hears this banging noise, right? And so she goes to follow the sound, and it's one of the nurses having sex with what looks like one of the patients. Somebody got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Okay, so now that started her wheel spinning, right? So Dr. Hanover eventually returns. They have on the website when you go into Google and type in the cast, they have Nurse Betsy, but the show's calling her Nurse Bucket. Okay. So she's giving him, an update on what's going on and how this interview, and he's frustrated. It's like, I don't know anything about an interview. This is news to me. I don't make it just ever go away. Da 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 da. And she's saying like he has this letter. So you can see he gets frustrated and he picks up this huge potted plant and just smashes it on the ground. The pot breaks. It was glass, so it breaks, and there's stuff everywhere. So he's like, you know what, I'll tell her. So he goes out to her, and of course she lays on the charm, and I think I could be a great addition to this hospital. I know you're a very busy man, but she also was like, you know what, I have my time is important to me as well. So if you want to just go ahead and conduct this interview, we can do this now, and just be done with it. So they end up going into the office, and Nurse Bucket is on her hands and knees cleaning up this potted plant that he just smashed on the floor, getting all this dirt and stuff up. And so she was surprised to see Nurse Ratched come into the office, and so they talk, and she's like laying it on thick about her credentials and how she worked with these soldiers and how she worked with these, these people, and how she, has been exposed to so much. And so it's not too much that she doesn't know or surprise her. So she goes through this whole spiel. And then he finally tells her, like, he's impressed with her, what she has to say, but they don't have any openings and they don't have the funding to bring on more staff, which is what he wanted to talk to the governor about getting more funding so that they can, get the stuff that they need, and also about this treatment that he, has this idea for. And so, of course, she's like, okay. So as she's walking out, Nurse Bucket is talking to the nurses at the station about them being, their laziness and them not, following protocol, And so, as she's walking out, she just go right ahead and slide someone's bag off the desk, and she's like, oh, well, thank you for your time, and she walks out. And so she gets into the car, and she goes to the person. She finds out that it's one of the nurses, a registered nurse named Amelia Emerson. And so she ends up going to Amelia Emerson's house, and asked about her. And I'm assuming that was her husband who was leaving, and basically she's not here. Would you like to, can I tell her, she was like, oh, I'm just an old friend of hers. I was just dropping by, Okay. So she introduced herself. Actually, she introduced herself as, Lord, what did she introduce herself? I can't. She introduced herself as Arlene Bauer, as an old friend. And she's Arlene Bauer, an old friend of Amelia. And so, of course, she gets back to the hotel, and she tells the lady at the front desk, like, if someone calls for an Arlene Bowers, that's for me. It's just a little game that me and an old friend of mine's play. So she's back, as she's walking to her room, the guy that she had made eye contact with as she was checking in, he's out there, and they trade, little quips back and forth. And then the next thing she goes over and she slides a note under his door. And then he comes through and he slides a note under her door, and it was asking, like, is she married? And I think there was another question on this. So she opens the door, he's standing there, and she's like, oh no, I'm not married. So he invites her in. Well, she invites him in. Hello. And they talk a little bit, and then she starts going into this weird, like, role-playing thing. Like, okay, he's thinking he's about to, get lucky. And then she's like, you know what? I've never done this before. And can we just sit and talk? And then she goes into this, like, kind of like, I want us to pretend like we're a married couple, and we are having an argument. And so she's like, okay, an argument about what? She was like, about children. You want children. I don't. And so he walks over and he pulls his pants down, like drops his pants down in front of her. And she's like, she was basically like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm doing what grown folks do, even though that he was a pervert. Like, you don't just walk in front of somebody and drop your pants and put your dick in their face. I mean, okay, he didn't pull it out, but I mean, she was at that level. That's all I'm saying. She was at that level when he pulled his pants down. And so she was like, so she's telling him about what, the whole story. So what's going to happen is we're going to have this disagreement, and you're not going to concede. I'm not going to concede. And so then we're going to realize that we're all wrong for each other. We're going to get a divorce. I'm going to find out that I'm pregnant. You're going to want me to keep it. And then after a few years, I'm going to try to be a mom for a few years. And then eventually I'm going to leave the child on someone's doorstep. Right? This is like this she's telling this man, right? And so he just pulls his pants up. It's like, you know what? When you're ready to get down with the get down, you know where I am. So he opens the door, and the lady that works the front desk is standing outside in the hallway. So as he's walking away, she was like, basically like that wasn't much to look at or whatever. And she tells her, you have a phone call. So the phone call was Mildred Ratched. So they agree to meet at a bar, and basically Nurse Ratched is like, this is what's going to happen. Either you're going to quit, or I'm going to tell your husband and Dr. Hanover and Nurse Bucket what I saw about you sleeping with that patient. And she was like, basically like, why are you doing this to me? She's like, you know what? I need a job. You got a job. You got the job that I want. I can't get hired unless somebody leaves. I need you to go. Okay, we're working together for me to get what I want. So I need you to quit. And she's like, well, how am I going to explain this to my husband, like this loss of income or whatever? And she's like, well, just tell him that it was just too much for you. Like, tell her the story to come up with. There's a knock at the door, and the governor's wife goes to Dr. Hanover's home. And she's basically telling him that she's really interested in what he's doing. She thinks that it's going to be a win-win for both of them, as far as for him, for the hospital, and for her husband's campaign. That they're, getting involved with this hospital, and the things they can do to help, and it's this whole facade about helping, trying to treat people. Basically, it's a win-win for everybody. Okay. And so now he goes into work the next day. Of course, he's happy. He's going to get this funding. He's going to get, the support that he needs. And so he's talking to Nurse Bucket, and he's telling her, like, what he's looking for. Like, I need, 10 patients to one nurse. Like, I guess because right now they're stretched kind of thin. She was like, that's going to be difficult to do because Amelia just quit, and then there was another nurse on vacation. And as he was about to get on the elevator, the nurse, who's the nurse trainee, was like, oh, you have a delivery. And so it was like this basket of fruit and that kind of stuff. And so he goes over and he opens the car, and it's from Nurse Ratched. She's just like, okay, she's just trying to get him to, like, remember her name. Like, she's trying to keep her name fresh in his memory. So when the whole Amelia thing, goes down, and they need this position filled, and, he won't have an excuse not to get her in, right? So the next thing you see her walking through the hall. She's all suited up in her nurses get up, and she's walking to the lobby. And so as she's walking, she's in the lobby. Nurse Bucket is doing, she's having a meeting with all of the staff, letting them know the governor's going to be here. We need everything to be in tip-top shape. We need the patients to be under control. We need everybody to do their job and be where they are supposed to be and doing what they're supposed to do. So this can be a success, so that we can get the funding, so we can get the stuff that we need. And then she sees Nurse Ratched, and she's like, what are you doing here? And so, because at this point, it's news to her. And so she was like, oh, I'm just here for the meeting. And so she continues on, and the next thing you know, you see all the press and all the stuff going on outside, and then it's the governor. He's pulling up, him and his wife. They get out, and they're meeting with Dr. Hanover. And so while Nurse Ratched and what's the other nurse name? I can't remember. While they're, doing the medication. So Nurse Ratched was in, I guess, the dispensary. I forget what they would call the medicine room. Okay, that's where they get the medicines and, get everybody's medicines and put them in little cups or whatever so that they can dispense them. And so she saw this unopened bottle of blood pressure medicine or something. And so she grabs the bottle. And so we don't see until later what she actually did with it. So while she's pushing the trolley, she's actually pushing the trolley while the other nurse is handing out the medication and making sure that the patient's taking the medication. So as she gets to Father Murphy's cup, you can see where she drops an additional pill in his cup. So they hand it to him. He takes it. Nobody's none the wiser. While this is going on, Dr. Hanover is outside giving the governor and his wife and the press a tour. They're talking about what they're going to do when the murderer shows up, how they're going to be able to keep him secure until they're able to diagnose him and decide if he's going to go to trial or if he's going to be, stay there, for the criminally insane, however that's going to work. And so while he's out there talking, Nurse Bucket runs out and is, you know, basically in panic, saying, Dr. Hanover, we need you. Da, da, da. So he runs in. Father Murphy is on the ground having some type of convulsions. He's having some type of fit. Something's going on. Nurse Ratched is like, she's doing what she needs to do to try to help him. Dr. Hanover walks in with Nurse Bucket and the governor. And Nurse Bucket is trying to pull Nurse Ratched away. And Nurse Ratched's like, don't you ever touch me again. And she was like, how dare you? And so she tries to pull her away again. And she was like, just give me a minute. And so she turns him on the side. He starts throwing up, you know, whatever that was. And so the next thing you know, you see him in his room. He's comfortable. They have him, you know, seemed like he's doing okay. And so Dr. Hanover and Nurse Bucket is standing there like, she said, it seems it was, I forget what she called it. Basically, she's saying that somebody made a mistake and gave him the wrong medication. And she kind of walked off, and you can see Dr. Hanover's wheel spinning like, what? Like, what's going on here? Governor, he's downstairs. He's a politician, so he's going around just, the patient Salvatore. Now, Salvatore is one of the patients that, when it first opened, when she first got to the hospital, Nurse Bucket was actually going in. She was talking to them about having this furlough, and like in order for them to do this furlough, they would have to do A, B, C, and D. And Salvatore was one of the people. And unfortunately, he was also one of the people that Nurse Bucket sedated for the governor's visit. I don't know. I don't know what his issues were, but she felt that he needed to be sedated. And so he's kind of walking around like a zombie, like sputtering to himself. And Nurse Ratched and one of the other nurses, Nurse Ratched was like, well, what's going on with him? And she was like, oh, well, he just found out that his brother died, and, you know, his family, the stuff is going on with his family, da, 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 da. And you can see in Nurse Ratched's face, like she, you know, she was like, oh, another opportunity for me to do some bullshit. So, okay. So, the governor is saying that he wants to go up to Father Murphy's room, and he want the cameras in there, and they want to take photos, and Dr. Hannah was like, well, no, you know, I really don't want my photo taken. Like, he doesn't want to be famous. He's not interested in being a celebrity, you know, a celebrity doctor. He's like, he just wants to do his job. And so they was like, oh, well, you know, since it was Nurse Ratched who helped him, then why don't we get her in the photos? And so they're standing around, she's in the room, and they're taking the photos, she's in the photos, and Dr. Hanover and Nurse Bucket is like, well, I guess she's part of the staff now, huh? And so Nurse Bucket, she walks on, and Dr. Hanover is like, okay, so you can see him thinking like, oh, did I make the right decision? Like, I think I may have messed up here. Okay, so after everything dies down, Salvatore's by himself. He's sitting alone, and you can see, you know, the medication is still working on him. And she walks over, Nurse Ratched walks over, and she starts talking to him, and she's trying to relate to him. It was like, I know exactly how you feel. I'm sorry about your brother. You know, I had a brother too, and you know, I thought, you know, that I would see my family again, and I never did. Now, you know, and I've only ever had my brother, and then he was taken away from me too, and you know, and I know how hard that can be, and da 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 da. And so she walks over to him because the nurses are kind of looking at her like, what's she got going on? Because at this point, she has her hands on his face, and she's like really close to him, and it's like, that's kind of that's unprofessional, honey. What you got going on? So she gets up and she walks around, and she starts. No, actually, before she does that, she said, I have to be. You know, I think that is cruel what the doctors and nurses here are doing to you. They just need to be honest with you. They are never going to let you out. You know, they are going to keep you here for the rest of your life, and you'll never get to see your family, and your family doesn't want to see you. They don't want to be bothered with you. Da, da, da. So this man who's already crushed, she's just going to go ahead and dig the knife in more and twist it, honey. So she walks around, and then you see her kneel over and is like, but, you know, I can help you end it all. Dr. Hanover has a letter opener on his desk. And, of course, she saw this when she went in for the interview. And I can take you to his office if you like. So, of course, she takes him to the office, and she leaves him in there. And she walks away. And as she's walking away, Dr. Hanover confronts her and with this bottle of blood pressure or something or other. He was like, this was an unopened bottle of medication, and there will be no reason for this bottle to be open because none of my patients have an issue that requires them to take this medication. And he's confronting her, and she's like, well, I don't know what she's talking about. I forget what happened, which caused them to go to the office. Oh, maybe somebody asked where Salvatore was or something. So they end up going into the office, and he looks around, and then he sees Salvatore dead on his bathroom floor with he slit his throat. And so now, Dr. Hanover is now sitting at the table with Nurse Ratched. He's about to have a fit, like, oh my God, the governor's here. I'm going to be ruined. I don't know what I'm going to do. And of course, Nurse Ratched is like, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. You need to go and meet with the governor because he's waiting to talk to you. And, you know, the governor likes me. So just let him know that you've hired me. And I think that's going to make him happy. So she... You know, she's doing everything she can to get up in there. And so he goes, she was like, okay, so he leaves her to deal with it. So he goes, the governor is standing out front of the hospital giving a speech. So she's leaving Dr. Hanover's office with this trolley that carries the towels and the linen and all that kind of stuff. And so of course Miss Bucket see her walking down the hall. She was like, what are you doing in there? And she's like, oh, well, Dr. Hanover told me he wanted me to wash his towels. She was like, wait a minute, he wants you to wash his towels with the patient's bedding and all that kind of stuff. She was like, well, I don't know how close you've been listening to his speeches, but he feels like everyone is created equal. And so she went on and pushed on with the little trolley. And as Nurse Bucket went into the office to kind of survey, like, what's going on? Like, what's going on, okay? So at this point, they've said their goodbyes, and the governor actually mentions Nurse Ratched. Like, I think, she's a tough cookie, but I think she's great. You should keep her, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, Nurse Ratched is coming to the hospital. It looks like she was at the hotel. And then there was this caravan of police officers and all these sirens blaring, So she went back to the hospital. It appears she went back to the hospital. And so it's because the murderer was arriving, right? And so they have all these police officers to make sure he's secure, and if he tries to make a move, they're gonna blow his brains out, whatever. But anyway, they get him into the hospital, and they're basically explaining to him, you're going to be here until they do their evaluation and determine what the next step is going to be, right? So the next thing you see is
It's me. I finally found you.
So you find out that they know each other. Now, I wonder if we're going to find out if that's her brother. The brother that she claimed was taken away from her, that she lost. I don't know. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen. But, yeah, that's pretty much how this episode ends. I'm definitely going to obviously keep watching because I want to know what's going on. But this chick is a straight-up sociopath, psychopath. I don't know how many words. She's probably a buffet of mental disorders at this point. So I'm going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys later.